Hey y'all, I'm Angela Barrett, and this is Talking South Carolina. Now y'all take a load off and listen, because no matter if you just moved here, thinking about moving here, been here your whole life, or you just plain nosy, bless your heart, I'll have something for you. Like, who's living in High Cotton? Who's madder than a wet hen? Places to go if you got a hankering for fried chicken, and where you can go to get drunk as Cooter Brown. We'll talk pig pickings, cow tipping, tillions, hay rides, who's buttering whose biscuits, what's a case quarter, and lots of other stuff. So stay a while. Y'all, it's gotta be a hoot.
This episode of the Talking South Carolina podcast has been brought to you in part by HomeMattersSC.com, professional real estate services and marketing in the Midlands of South Carolina for people who want more. And now she's a realtor by day and a podcaster by night. Here's your host of the Talking South Carolina podcast, Angela Barrett.
Hey Douglas, thanks for being here with me today.
Well, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, and how appropriate to have you here today, as it is Veterans Day, and you spent 20 years in the Air Force.
I did, yep, 20 years as a bomb loader. I loaded the A-10s and F-16s with all their munitions.
Yeah, I was going to say, thank you for your service, and Aircraft Armament Specialist, I think is the official title, right? Yeah, great, a.k.a. Bomb loader.
Or load toad, as they used to call us in the Air Force.
Called what?
A load toad.
Oh, load toad. Oh, my gosh. So, what do you remember about the day you enlisted?
The most poignant thing I remember is being in the plane and just being emotional.
The day you enlisted?
Yeah, the day I enlisted and flew off to basic training, because you're leaving everything you love behind you.
Yeah. So what was the motivation to join? What was the reason?
Do something bigger than me. I mean, I at the time we were in Maryland, and I guess we were 4 years into being poultry farmers, and I just graduated high school, and there wasn't a lot to do down there in Maryland except be a commercial fisherman, oysterman, truck farmer, a vegetable farmer, or poultry, and that was a lot of work. I didn't really want to go back to school, and I'm like, well, let me do something really important with my life, and we'll join the Air Force. And nobody really thought I'd make it through basic training because I was a little scrawny, 125-pound kid at the time. I'd say I made it.
Yeah, absolutely. I made a career out of it. Now, when did you meet your wife in this process?
We actually met before I left to join the Air Force. We were both working at a place called Side Street Seafood Market. It was a little seafood restaurant market right on the Chesapeake Bay in Crisfield, Maryland. And we met there and got engaged before I went off to basic training. And we ended up getting married in 86.
While you were obviously in the Air Force.
Yep.
Yeah.
The first base.
And so now, where was boot camp for you?
Lackland Air Force Base in Texas.
Gotcha. Now, what is your funniest moment that you can remember in boot camp?
In boot camp, the funniest moment. There weren't too many of those, but
Oh, come on.
well, probably the funniest moment, if we're just going to go for humor, was after we were all done. They pulled us out of the barracks we had been staying in and put us in like a little side barrack off to the side because they had to roll another flight through.
Sure.
And our TIs came over to that other barracks that we had moved to with our stuff for like our last night, and they just cut up and were cracking jokes with us and everything else. And that was a good time.
Well, good. Now you served two tours in Kuwait and 2 tours in Saudi Arabia, correct?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Yep.
What can you tell us about that?
That was quite an experience. Because I did the 2 Kuwait tours first and then the 2 Saudi Arabia tours. The first Kuwait tour I was in, we were the 3rd rotation in after we got Kuwait back from Saddam. And we were told, to stay on the hardened surfaces because we didn't know where the landmines were. So we were forbidden to step into the sand.
Now, let me interrupt just a second. What was the name of this particular tour, or did it have one? Well,
If it did, it's been so long ago, I've probably forgotten it.
okay.
I find that happens a lot with my, like the little particulars. I run into guys all the time and they're like, remember when we used to do that loadout? It had, two AIM-9s and the BDAs. What did we call that? And I'm like, I don't remember.
So y'all were over there again after you had the capture had taken place. So you were keep going.
Yeah, that was an experience because that was my first time ever in what was a war zone, and to see the devastation from war was pretty. I don't know. I don't know that I would say traumatizing, but it was definitely an eye opener to see the residents and stuff of Kuwait just blown up. And we went to one part that was, I think it was called the Resistance House, where there was a batch of Kuwaitis that were resisting, and they were doing a good job for a while. But then they rode some tanks in and some, I guess it was RPGs and stuff, and just started blowing the daylights out of the house. And you got to walk through the Resistance House, and it was that was something to see.
Yeah, I imagine. Now that was your first tour. What about the second one?
The second one I don't remember too much about because it's basically this a mirror image of the first tour. I mean, it's hard to remember where they split up. And the same with the Saudi Arabia tours. I remember being in those nice accommodations we called tents. The first two Kuwait tours and the first Saudi Arabia tour. The second Saudi Arabia tour, I remember we were actually in dorms that they finally built. The one thing I didn't like about that, and I remember it specifically for the second Saudi Arabia tour, is there were other dorm areas separated from ours. And the one thing I didn't like is each area had a water tower, a big tall water tower. And all the other areas, they were painted tanned, except in ours. Ours was painted red and white striped. And I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that.
Well, why was that?
I never got a good answer, but it felt like a giant target on our back is what it felt like to me.
Wow. Now how long each time were you over there?
I believe the Kuwait tours were 3 months. The first Saudi Arabia tour was 3 months. The second Saudi Arabia tour, I had to stay for 2 rotations. So it was almost 6 months, I think, that I stayed over there for the last tour.
Well,
I didn't know I was going to stay there for 2 rotations till we got ready to leave for the first group. And they're like, oh no, you got to stay. And we can't have everybody leaving at one time. So you and your crew is going to stay until the other, and work with the other crews when they get here. And I'm like, dang it. It's kind of not here.
Yeah. So, what was I guess, throughout your career in the Air Force, what was the thing that you missed most about civilian life? Other than your wife. We'll go ahead and before you get in trouble.
No, and my son joined the Guard, and I told him, I said, once you get in, it's almost like a regular job. I mean, if you can figure loading bombs on an aircraft is a regular job, but I mean, it's
Somebody's gonna do it.
It's just a day-to-day grind kind of thing that you go through. So I don't remember missing too much. I didn't even really miss many of the holidays, even with the tours I did to the Middle East, but you do lose a little freedom. But you just adapt to it and you just don't even think about it after that point. But I mean, you have to, take leave and make sure everybody knows where you're at and when you're going to be back. And so, I mean, that's maybe the main thing is just your time really isn't your own.
Yeah. So now now as a civilian, what do you miss the most about military life?
Oh, the camaraderie. You just don't get that. And no offense to the civilian world, but I mean, you just don't get it there because,
Sure.
I mean, everybody's got your back. I mean, whether you care for the person or not, if the rubber hits the road and you're in a bad spot, you just know everybody's going to have your back.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to take just a minute to throw this elephant out here. So there has been talk for many years now that when I say talk, things that I have read where some people who have been in the service appreciate, want, thank you for your service. And then there are others who, please don't say it. What's your take?
Oh, I don't mind. I usually respond with thank you for your support because without the support from home, it would almost make our job non-existent.
Right. And why do you think that is for those that don't want that saying?
I don't know. Because I never really thought about it, but I mean, in my mind, it's not a bad thing. I mean, if those folks are asking, want to express, how much that they appreciate what you did, and I don't see any reason why we should not want to hear that.
Yeah, right. I've always thought, well, maybe I have to do a little more in-depth digging on that because that's interesting. Why they would not?
Yeah, and there's some who. And they may be the same people. I don't know, but like I've got my retired Air Force hat on today. There's some people who are like, oh, why do some of the guys that were in it's like, why do you feel like you had to walk around with that on? It's like, because that was 20 years of my life. And it was probably the most important thing I've done with my life, next to family.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm all proud of it. I'm going to walk around.
Absolutely. And you should be. Absolutely. Yeah. Maybe we'll collaborate, do a deeper dive on that one. So now tell me how in the world of all the Santa Clauses that you went from loading bombs to whatever you called it to writing children's books.
That was I always, God put me on this path. It's pretty obvious to me. It wasn't supposed to happen. I mean, when your kids are growing up and you're reading stories, you always think it's like, oh, these are cool. I should be able to write a kid's book. I should try that sometime. And it's one of those thoughts that you have, and then it passes and it goes away. And one day my son went out in the backyard and he caught a baby rabbit and he named it Jasper, and he brought it in the house and it spent the night with us. And we let it go the next day. And I looked at my wife. I'm like, what a great idea for a kid's book. I said, I should write that. And, yeah, so from that point, I thought it would be a cute story for the family, to have a book to pass down to the grandkids. And then it gained traction. It actually sold like 500 copies in the first 6 months or so. And I'm like, wow, it's like, maybe I'm on to something. Maybe I push this a little bit, see how far it goes. And
so that was the
start asking me about the other books. Yeah.
That was, I think, the night I spent in a people house. That actually comes from that rabbit. I love the name Jasper. That was my grandfather's name. So how did you actually, did you just say, okay, I'm going to go in here, sit down and start writing, or how did that go?
The first book, I had the rough draft, almost a full book written in probably 20 minutes because it just, my brain just started firing on all cylinders. And I just started thinking about all the things the rabbit went through. And when he goes outside and tries to tell his little woodland friends, are they going to even believe that he spent the night in the house? So he has to try to convince them that he did. And, so he goes through all of that process. And, at the end of the story, there's a little surprise that I won't let out that he can point to and be like, see, I told you, kind of moment.
Right. Now, I know you said it probably was about 20 minutes, but in reality, from when you sat down and wrote the original draft, to the time it published, how long was that?
That was a long time. TJ was about 9 when he caught the rabbit. I wrote the story. He's 29 now. And I didn't get the story published until I think September 2020 is the published date on that first book. So it was a lot of probably 3 or 4 publishers telling me no through the years. And, somebody tells you no, so you put it on the shelf for like 6 months to a year. You lose track of it. Maybe 2 years go by, and you try it again. But you just keep hacking away at it, and it's COVID had hit and we had some extra money. I worked at Lowe's at the time, and they were giving you, frontline worker checks and stuff like that. So I had some extra cash, and I'm like, let me take another swing at this book thing. And Fulton Publishing sent it off to them, and they said, "Yeah, we'll do it with you." So we started to do it, and everything went pretty good. Yeah, but it did took a long time, and that's one thing I like to tell folks. You're going to get your nose going and stuff. Don't let them bring you down. Everybody there's no. And there is, I always tell folks, it's like get the word failure out of your vocabulary, because you don't fail, you just learn. And the only time you really fail is when you yourself quit. But you're learning, and you learn what not to do, what to do. And if you just keep pushing, you'll get to the success on the other side.
Yeah, I've talked to quite a few authors over the years, and I don't know that anybody had what I would call complete success their first go around, or not many anyway. It is not an industry for the faint of heart, is what I understand.
It's not, you're not going to, well, at least I'm not anyway. At this point, it's not a great way to get involved in something to think you're going to make it some quick cash or anything. Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Right.
But
now, what about your illustrator in this book? Who is that?
The publisher hooked me up with the illustrator. I don't know why they keep it secret. Maybe it's because that I maintain rights to the illustrations, and they don't want any back and forth going on there.
Gotcha.
So that's probably why that is. But they gave me like 10 to choose from, 10 styles, 10 illustrators. And I knew I wanted to keep it simple, because I knew I was shooting towards like the preschool kids. So I didn't need a whole lot of detail. I didn't need to get all clogged up in detail. Wanted to look more cartoonish. And actually, I've gotten commented on that. People are like, these look just like the books I used to grow up with, folks, my age and, 50, 60 years old. So that made me feel good. That was a good compliment to know.
Yeah. Now, the second book that you wrote, The Day at the Beach. Now, where did that story come from?
Well, I had no intention in publishing a second book. I thought I was going to be one and done. And when people started asking me, well, where are they going next? Where are they going next? I'm like, I have no idea. But we like to vacation in Myrtle Beach. So it's like, well, these are outsiders. These are woodland critters who probably have never been to a beach. So we'll have a new character move into the pond and tell them, it's like, hey, I saw this great, cool place on my way here. We should go and investigate it someday. And yeah, I think it's called the beach. And they're all like, a beach? Never heard of one of those. And so they all go off to the beach and build sand castles and pick up seashells. And they run into a sea turtle there, all kinds of stuff.
Right. Neat. And then your very latest, which just published September of this year, Farmer Jasper, right?
Farmer Jasper, yep. That's a throwback to my poultry house days there. And I didn't know the same thing. I didn't know that there was going to be a third book. But people keep asking me what's next. And that's what really drives me, makes me think that God really has his hands on this, because folks that could easily say these things are no good, don't do that. Everybody comes by and says, wow, these things, you're really onto something here. And some folks even say I could see it as a cartoon at some point in time on TV. But yes, but the Farmer Jasper kind of came from the old farmhouse. Figured they could go see what's going on the farm. The way that one starts out is all the little woodland critters get together, and they haven't seen their friend Mouse in a while. So they're like, well, where's Mouse? Why isn't Mouse here? They want to play. And so they're like, well, he lives down in that big red barn over there. Let's walk down and see what he's got going on. And they get down there, and they realize that he's just swamped in chores. And he's like, well, I can't do anything until I get these chores done. He's got to feed the animals and plant a garden. And he asked him, he's like, will you guys help me? And we're like, yeah, that's what friends do. So they all get together, and they feed the animals, water the animals, plant a garden. And they actually have I've actually got a couple of activities for the kids in the most recent one. There's the idea came from my dad, who's passed away now. There's a little corn maze they got to walk through to gather corn to feed the chickens, so they can trace through the corn maze with their finger and stuff and help
fun
corn maze. And at the end of the book, there's when they can finally play, they're going to play hide and seek. So they're all hidden, peeking around corners of buildings and stuff for the kids, so they should try to find them.
Neat. So now let me ask you, the characters that are in all the books, do they have, or do they represent like real people in your life, or these are truly just fiction from?
Yeah, they're truly just fictional little critters.
And no personalities? Because I know a lot of writers, I mean, they don't, obviously it's not about their wife or their kid or whatever, but some of their little personalities that come out in the books, maybe. So none of that either, huh?
No, no, no.
So which character do you think that you identify most with?
Oh, that's a good question. I've never been asked that one before. Well, I'd have to say the main character, Jasper.
Jasper? Because he's sort of the leader, or leader may be the wrong word, but he certainly comes up with the ideas for the most part, right?
Yeah, he's the if there would be a main character, that would be the main character. Yeah.
Right. Now there was another question I was going to ask you. Let me see if I can't. Well, you answered me about, I was going to say, why rabbits? But you did answer, and you sort of stuck with the rabbit thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And now is in the books, there are some children stories that are trying to teach something, or they're lessons to be learned in these books.
There are, but I don't write them specifically for the lessons, if that makes any sense at all. I like my tagline is just fun stories to quiet the noise of the world and let kids be kids. Because I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a teacher. I just want kids to be able to pick up a book, read it, and kind of giggle and laugh at it and that sort of thing. But having said that, and having been in the military, you are going to find, like as you can imagine, the Farmer Jasper book, there's teamwork in there, and there's responsibility in there, and there's integrity in there. And I mean, if you dig hard enough, you'll find them. And I actually think that's kind of cool, because the kids will learn without feeling like they're actually learning. They're not picking up a book saying, this is how you do this, or this is how you're supposed to do that kind of thing. But in being a good rabbit, you'll learn proper way to handle and talk to people and deal with different situations.
Well, that is neat. That is neat. What's next? You got another one coming?
I do. It's and it was 75% written until I started thinking about it a little bit. So we're back down to about 50%. We're back down to about 50% written. But it's going to be Jasper's Christmas. Everybody's like, you ought to write a Christmas book. Everybody needs a Christmas book. So
oh yeah,
Jasper's going to experience Christmas. And this may be the first time that I'm really going to teach a little bit, because the first half is going to be winter fun, Santa Claus, and the second half is going to be a wise old owl, because they're going to go out and they're going to look at the houses and see the decorations, and there's going to be a church with this manger scene out front, and they're going to question who those people are. The wise old owl is going to fly down and explain to them the manger scene.
Oh, neat. That'll be fantastic. Well, I can't wait. Now, when do you think you'll be finished with that? I know you said you've sort of backtracked. Think it now.
It's going to be a while. It's going to probably be a year or two, probably.
Gotcha.
Because along with that comes the financial part of it.
Sure.
I promised my wife that I would not go on a financial hole making these things and let the last book pay for the next one. So we always kind of are above water. So get some sales under our belt. I think Farmer Jasper's going to sell well, so I don't think that's going to be a problem. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And I've even got a story beyond the Christmas story. So there's, and it's going to be, again, a teachable moment without really being a teachable moment.
Sure.
There's going to be a storm, and the ground mole is going to get flooded out of his house. Well, ground moles, when they're above ground, can't see.
Ah.
So he's going to have to, the friends are going to have to help basically a blind ground mole try to find his house.
Oh, wow.
So that's going to be kind of cool, and maybe, be a good book for the handicapped kids and stuff.
Oh, yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, absolutely. Well, you can get your books, I know, on Amazon, because I saw them there, and else.
Yeah, they are literally everywhere online. They're on BarnesandNoble.com, Books A Million, or even on Walmart.com. My big push at this point, since I don't have any problem getting them everywhere, is to get them stocked in stores. They are distributed through Ingram Content, which is one of the largest books distributors in the country. And they are 100% returnable through them. So, I mean, there's really nothing holding folks back. They probably already have an Ingram account. It's just being a one-man show, trying to get the information out there so everybody knows about them. And that's why I'm here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's very interesting, and we'll have to collaborate maybe on something about a book signing or something, because that would be pretty cool. Well, I just want to thank you again for being with me today. And again, thank you for your service. And I'm glad that you do like that phrase, because I really do mean it. None of us would be here without the service of our veterans. So
I appreciate it.
Certainly appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to the next book.
Yeah, as am I.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Talking South Carolina podcast. Why not check out our website at talkingsouthcarolina.com and follow us on social media. You can subscribe to the show on Spotify, YouTube Music, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and on your favorite podcast apps. For information about being a sponsor on the show and on the website, contact us at area code 803-386-9885 or email us at angela@talkingsouthcarolina.com. This episode has been brought to you by the friendly folks at Giraffe Marketing. Find out more at giraffemarketingllc.com.
I'm gonna be the best version of me. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, roar like a lion, and I ain't even trying.